Everybody says they're loving. Everybody says they're unifying. Everybody says that they have family values. Everybody says that. But nobody actually wants to make a stand when society pushes us against our values. We don't want to say nothing because it goes against what society's trying to push, and we don't want to offend anybody. I am done. I'm done. I want to keep it real. I will risk being misunderstood. This is the Nice Veins Bro podcast, the #1 podcast for nurses who want to live that next level life. I'm Nana Pablo, host of this podcast, registered nurse, and creator of Nice Veins Bro. Have you ever been at a church and the people at the front, they're using a microphone, some terrible feedback happens, everybody looks to the back, where's the sound guy? And then the person from the front's like, oh, look, the devil's attacking us. He doesn't want this to happen, this event. And it's like, a lot of times it's the incompetence of the person in the back. And it's, we give Satan too much credit sometimes. Sometimes it's I say that because I spent way too long trying to figure out my equipment. And the first thought in my head was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be saying, so all the superstition stuff. And turns out it was it's my stupidity. But I figured it out, and here we are. It's a one-man show, so I have to figure things out, and it takes a little extra time. But I'm happy to be. This is episode 16, people. Episode 16, I'm excited. I'm wearing my scrubs for today's episode just because I felt like it. Yeah, outside it is freezing cold. There's ice everywhere here in Dallas, and so I'm just hoping that it's not another snowmageddon, an ice-mageddon, like it was a couple years back, and we lost all our power. We still have all our power, so this is great. Praise the Lord to be able to have shelter and all that good stuff. Today's episode is going to be, it's very important. Today's episode, I'm going to really, really speak from the heart on something that's been on my mind, something that's been on my heart. I pray that you will receive it with grace and that you will understand that I'm just trying to keep things real. I'm trying to be honest. One of the things that I promised from the very beginning with this podcast was I was not going to, beat around the bush. I'm going to say it the way that I feel, and trust that you with grace will receive that information with good intention. And so today's topic is about being passive and how stupid it is and how I believe we got to be standing for our values. Mercy. I'm going to start with this. Nurses have always been called to have impartiality, okay? Not be partial with the way that we deliver care, not be partial with the way that we approach our patients and the people around us. Really, it's a concept that all of us should have. But as nurses specifically, this is something that we studied, right? What is impartiality? It's basically not to have any judgmental bias, or basically treating people, not one group of people better than another group of people, or having like some sort of prejudice against a certain demographic. To be fair, to be just. And the first thing, this is extremely important. I think that this is one of it's like gold standard. This is absolutely critical when it comes to being a nurse and the people that we care for. But I also have to ask the question, when we're talking about fair and just, when we're talking about not being biased, when we're talking about having, no partiality, treating people justly is based on what? Treating people fair is based on what? What moral compass are we basing our approach on? What are your values? The first step in nursing practice is to be self-aware. When you approach someone, I remember studying this specifically. It's like to self-evaluate your feelings, your thoughts, biases, etc. Assess them, and that will give you a better understanding of how you should truly approach the person with love and to treat them fairly. But the way that, I'm just going to be honest, the way that this world is right now, it's gotten worse and worse exponentially. It feels like I have to ask myself, what moral compass do we base things on? especially with the concept of relative truth, subjective facts. What moral compass do we use? I mean, people have different definitions about stuff. One of the things that bother me so much is when people come up with their own definitions of things. They come up with some random, they pull it out of their butt. I'm just gonna be frank. Truth is not, the fact is the fact. What's relative is your perception of that absolute truth. And that is so important to understand. People used to think that the sun rotated around the earth that wasn't the absolute fact, because later on we found out that the absolute fact, the absolute truth was that we rotate. So your perception of the facts, whether true or false, don't change the truth. Back when we believed that the sun rotated the earth didn't make the sun actually rotate the earth. Truth is truth. Our perception of it is what changes. Our perception of it is what's relative and subjective. It's an important concept. I'm going down a rabbit hole. I have to stop. We're going to get to it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why being passive is stupid, why we have to stand up for our values, especially nowadays, especially now. It is critical. It's the way that we'll save ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and society. This is the way. This is the way. Mandalorian, okay? We've got to stand up for our values. Hola mi gente, everybody has a crazy nursing story to tell. If you want to share yours with the world, send it to me. I'll feature it here on the podcast and you can get my take on it. You can also ask me questions, love questions. Remember, HIPAA rules do apply when you're telling your story, of course, and I will make sure you remain anonymous. I don't know what you're waiting for. Send me a message, niceveinsbro.com/podcast. That's again, niceveinsbro.com/podcast. Looking forward to it. Whether people are made to be silent or they choose to be silent, people die in silence. Silence is one of the most poisonous things to society when people don't speak up or speak out. People die in silence. That's something that I feel like we need to understand. However, in the same flip of the coin, people also die when they speak out, right? Well, people die in general. Everyone dies, right? But the point I'm trying to say is I'd rather die, and I hope you do too, but I'd rather die while speaking out about something that I am truly convicted about, something that I feel within my heart and with my bones, something I believe in. I'd rather die for that, saying something, rather than die in silence because I didn't say anything or I didn't do anything. I'd rather be scrutinized for something that I believe in than not say anything and cause more harm to myself and others. As advocates, nurses, I'm knocking on the door. Hello. Nurses ought to have this attitude as well. It's my opinion. It's my opinion. I feel very strongly about this. More and more as the days go by, as the years go by. I've been a nurse for almost 7 years now, I believe. After seeing so much pain, so many terrible things and great things at the bedside within my profession. And not only in the profession, but with the way society is playing out right now. The more and more I live on this planet, the more and more I gravitate to the three things that I really want to stand for with this brand. When I talk about promoting God, wellness, and purpose, those three concepts are everything that I want to talk about. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I want to promote. It's what I think not just nurses need, but the world needs. God, wellness, and purpose. Spirituality, the moral compass. Wellness means that, being healthy, body, mind, and spirit, your brain, being well, being steady, emotionally stable. And then purpose is to have a mission in life that you feel passionate about, your work, your life's work, having a very clear understanding of what you are put on this earth for, your purpose. Those three things, my people, okay, essential for living a fulfilled life. I'm so passionate about that. I'm just getting started. But what I'm going to say first here is that those three things apparently on the outside seem like that's great. A point of unifying God, wellness, and prayer. Everyone's okay with that. Those things are great. But the more I realize is that those three things, those three concepts, when you go deep into understanding those in your life, they're actually very controversial topics. And some of my views on them I've noticed are quite, I'll just say this. Some of my views when it comes to God, wellness, and purpose don't go along with what society deems, correct. Because I have this strong conviction, it caused me to do something about it, to, start a podcast, to talk about it with people, to be more vocal. And if you know me, I'm an ENFJ when it comes to the 16 personality thing, the test, that you take. And those people, ENFJs, care a lot about what people think of them or say of them. I'm afraid of what people will think of me. I'm afraid, and I'm done. I am done. I'm done. I want to keep it real. I want to be able to share the convictions that I have because I think that there's too many people who are passive. So that's my first point. Stop being passive. Take a stance. There are so many important topics in this life that people are just in this gray area about how they feel about things. And it's okay to not know at first, but do something about it. Think for yourself. Research. Find out the way that your core beliefs on certain things. Take a stance. If you don't take a stance and you're going to stay in the gray area, some people say it's a balance. The gray area is not a balance. The gray area is you don't know. If you stay there, not only do you not know, you begin to not care. And when you check out, I'm telling you, it erodes society. The more people stop caring and stay in the gray area, the more society erodes because nobody cares about what really matters in life. Core beliefs. You don't have to know all the details about certain things. And I would argue that the Christians listening, we have a place to go. We have a place to go for our answers. I'm going hard today. I'm sorry. But listen, we've got a place to go. It is the scriptures. That is where our worldview is based fundamentally in scripture. Do your research. Think for yourself on important topics because if you don't do it for yourself, someone's going to do it for you. Someone's going to tell you how to think. And there ain't nothing worse than not thinking for yourself because nobody knows your experience as good as you, right? Society's all about, well, you don't know my experience. Okay. But then they turn around and look for someone to tell them how to think about something. Think for yourself. Stop being passive, y'all. We don't have to all agree on things. Discover different opposing views, okay? I'm not saying that we are ever going to find out what that absolute truth is. We may always be discovering it. And that's the whole beauty of being able to deal with people who have different opinions and stuff. I don't like being around the people who don't know what they believe, the people who don't want to find out how they feel about certain things, the people who want to avoid any kind of conflict, the people who think that your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth and all this stuff. Those are the people that want to sit down when important discussions come up. How are we going to get to a better society if all of us don't want to offend nobody? Because everything now is offensive. Everything now is offensive. You can't even handle a conversation with someone who opposes your view. And I feel like this is pervasive, and this is what's happening in society, and it's coming into healthcare real hard, real strong. And I see it, and I want to push back on it, as much as I can. And I know this might feel like it's off topic from nursing and all that stuff. I don't think so. I think it's very much related, if not with nursing, with everything else in your life. And it's all about, like I said, God, wellness, and purpose. Whether you're a nurse or not, this is important. Whether it relates to your practice or whether you're not even a nurse at all, this is important if we want to live that next level life. Let's take a break.
On top of the morning, on top of the wave, on top of the team, on top of the days, on top of my purpose. I create. Y'all wanna copy, but we're not the same.
Why is it so important, especially for people in healthcare? especially for people in healthcare. And I'll tell you why it's so important to not be passive. We work with the most vulnerable population in society, the most vulnerable among us in society, the sick, the people who need us, need care, need someone to hold their hand. And if we are passive, when we are supposed to be the most advocating force within healthcare, when it comes to their health, when it comes to for them to be able to make it, let me tell you something. Being an advocate and being passive cannot coexist. You cannot be a passive advocate. It goes against everything of what it means to be an advocate. When someone enters a hospital and needs help for whatever reason, and there isn't someone there, either from their family or from the staff, when someone walks into a hospital, which by the way is a very dangerous place, people think hospitals are safe. Malpractice, people. Look up the numbers. I don't have them here in front of me, but it's astonishing. I'm not saying we do it on purpose. I'm just saying it's not a safe, quote unquote, safe place to go to the hospital. It's a scary place. You don't want to be in the hospital. They need advocacy. They need someone to stand with them. And a lot of times they don't have family. We are the advocates. You learn that in nursing school. I learned that in nursing school. That's my favorite thing about being a nurse, is being an advocate. You can't be a passive advocate. This is why in an earlier episode, I made mention about nurses and how great nurses are able to confront a situation. If you're afraid of any kind of confrontation or anything like that, it has the possibility of hurting your practice. Because if you cannot confront I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the dietitian. I don't care if it's the PT, respiratory therapist. I don't care if it's another nurse, a doctor. If you're afraid of that, of standing up for the protection of the vulnerable, it has effects, dire effects on patient care. It leads to bad stuff, leads to malpractice. That's why it's so important. But I want to get back to standing for our values. I am tired. I'm tired of being afraid of what others think. I'm notorious for this. I will try to sugarcoat things. Because I like when people like me. I like when people like me. But I need to bring that level of quote unquote niceness. I need to dial that down to a point where I am not compromising on my convictions, on my beliefs to appease other people. And I feel like we do this constantly as a society. We do this constantly. We compromise our core values in order to appease other people because we have this offended culture, triggered culture, cancel culture. I want to stand for my values. That is part of living fulfilled, is to be able to live out your core values, to stand and say something when you know that. And it's not just saying something. A lot of times it is acting out something. It's making a stand, not necessarily with words, but with actions. Listen to me. Listen. America does not need another activist. America does not need another nice person. We don't need another one of those songs where people, all these artists come together and write a song about love and unity. We don't need another song. We don't need another banner. We don't need another tweet from some billionaire that talk about how, virtue signaling. What we need is obedience and accountability. This is what America needs. We need obedience and accountability to rise up to the standards of what we profess our values are. Because everybody says they're loving. Everybody says they're unifying. Everybody says that they have great family values. Everybody says that. But nobody actually wants to make a stand and go against the stream when society pushes us against our values, pushes us against our core values, things that affect our families and go against our nature and go against our principles. Nobody ever wants to make a stand for that. Have you ever noticed that? The silent majority, there's a ton of people who share these values, these conservative values, I would say. And when society pushes us to the edge, we don't want to say nothing because it goes against what society's trying to push, and we don't want to offend anybody. We want to be in. And this is what we've learned. I truly feel that. This is what we learned growing up. We've grown up in a society that we can't say nothing. And every time you try to express yourself about something, I've had this too. I've got, people who will say, hey, you shouldn't say that. It's not representative of people may misunderstand. I will risk being misunderstood. Sometimes we got to do this, y'all. Sometimes we've got to risk being misunderstood. Think about the way Christ came on this earth. You think that he risked being misunderstood? He's still misunderstood. He's still misunderstood by most of the population, by the majority of humanity in the past and in the present and in the future. He's going to continue to be misunderstood until he comes back and proves his point and takes us home. I'm just saying the truth, y'all. I'm keeping it real. That's my goal. And I'm expressing myself, and I hope that you accept my sentiment with grace. People are broken, not living out their core values many times. I'm not saying the rest of society. I'm talking about the people who do have these core values, that share the core values that I'm sharing here, but they're too afraid to make a stand. How are you going to live how are you going to live a fulfilled life if you don't live out your core values? If you are too afraid to stand up for those values. Organizations, all these big people up at the top, they don't care. They don't care about your day-to-day. Take personal responsibility. Stop being passive. Take a stance. This is why we made this podcast. I hope that you're still listening. But this is why I made this podcast. This is why I want to be more open about my convictions, because it is a way for me not only to express myself in the freedom that we have in this country, but also to fight back on a society that is infringing on our core, that's telling us how to think about things, that is shunning away if you are an individual thinker. If you're challenging the status quo, you are shunned. And it's a very dangerous place to be. It's a very slippery slope. And I'm passionate about it. I told you this was going to be a hot one. This would be a hot episode, man. Hey, I just want to thank you for listening. It means the world to me, especially because at the time of this recording, I'm still only a couple months from starting this whole thing. So if you're interested in helping me build this brand even more, please share this podcast on your social media and grab some merch from the website at niceveinsbro.com. Got some great stuff there for sale. Send me a DM on Instagram and share some encouragement, some love, and some hate. I will welcome that too. But don't be shy. Talk to you soon. I'm going to close out this episode by just restating that passivity will destroy you. It will destroy you. It will erode everything that you think is valuable in your life. People will tell you how to think if you are passive, and you will not be able to dictate or be in control of your life. Other people will control you, and you don't want that. And then secondly, stand for those values, those core values. If you do not stand for your core values, someone will write those core values for you, and they will force you to live by their standards, and you will literally lose your identity. And I want to ask this question as I close. When Jesus came to earth, was he unifying or was he divisive? It's kind of a trick question. Was he unifying or was he divisive? Here's the answer. It depends on how you view what he did on this earth. It depends on how seriously you took his word. I tell you one thing, there was a whole slew of people, there was a whole group of people that would say that he came to divide. The question is, who did he unify and who were the ones that felt cut off? That's a deep question. That's a deep question. And Jesus is, he wasn't no respecter of, a position. Oh, these were leaders of the church. Yeah, he went for them first. So my point with that is when you make a stand, when you stop being passive, when you make a stand, some people will respect you and unify. They will respect the fact that you will stand for your values, and they will celebrate the fact that you are standing for who you are. Or they will feel like you are being divisive, and they will see you as a threat. So you have a choice. You have a choice. Jesus was not passive. He stood for those core values that he taught in Scripture. So I'm just trying to follow Jesus. I mean, if I say that I'm a Jesus follower, I'm reading the Scriptures. I'm finding my moral code there. I'm just keeping it real, y'all. I know this is not a religious podcast, but tell you what, God, wellness, and purpose. Those three things is what I'm gonna die for those things. That's what I am all about. And I've decided not to be passive and to stand for those core values. It doesn't matter what people think of me. That is it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, that you related to that. And if you feel passionate about those things, share this with a friend. We won't grow, we won't get bigger unless you share it with someone. So I invite you to help a bro out and share it with somebody. Share it on your social media. Make sure to rate if you're listening on a podcast platform. Make sure to rate it on there, 5 stars. Give a review. Say something about what you enjoy about the podcast. And as always, remember to be a positive force within healthcare and society. Que Dios me lo bendiga. When I would listen to podcasts before I became a podcaster myself, I didn't realize how much leaving a 5-star review helped. And so now on this side, I just want you to know that it really does mean a whole lot when people review and share the content. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody and leave a 5-star review on whichever platform you use, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And if you're interested, you can also find us on social media at Nice Veins Bro, or shop online at niceveinsbro.com. My personal stuff you can find under Nene Pablo, which is spelled NENEPABLO. I spend most of my time on YouTube making vlogs and videos and on Instagram. So I would love to connect with you. And remember, be a positive force and influence within healthcare and society. It's all about God, wellness, and purpose here. Thank you for listening.